Good morning, Will. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm alive and well. I'm awake at this bright and early hour of 6 a.m.
See, I say that usually around about 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm awake and
We live very different lives.
oh my God, yes. And I'll tell you what, it'll affect you for the rest of your life because doing morning show radio, I had to be up at 2:45 a.m. And that meant going to bed by 7:30, 8 o'clock at night.
Right.
And
so then you're eating dinner at 3 p.m.
Oh yeah, like an old man. Yeah. I really, you hit the grocery store with all the old people.
Yeah, you call it supper at that point.
Yeah, you do. I got to ask you, with hashtag Storytime, do you find yourself being the silent wolf? In other words, you watch life, you feel things, and you go, "That's got to be a story."
I think I'm a pretty loud wolf, actually, because I do find myself retelling a lot of stories and all. Yeah, I think I do look for that content that is part of life. But yeah, I think we all have great stories to share, and they don't need to be some epic tale that spans years and years. They can be small moments that happen in 10 seconds where you're fundamentally changed before and after that moment. I think those make great stories. So I think there's every day, I love to, at the end of the night, to go, what was the best story that I had from today?
Well, I'll take that. But what I do is I do a defrag journal. And then I defrag the day to find out, okay, well, that was enjoyable. Okay, what did we learn from this? How can we turn this into something that creates more conversation instead of just, hey, what are you up to?
Right. Yeah. And that also really helps if you ever get arrested and they're like, where were you the night of January 28th? And you're like, actually,
let me show you the timestamp in my defrag journal.
Kind of detailed breakdown. My alibi is airtight.
You talk about that everybody has a story, but I'm so afraid that a lot of people want to turn it into something that rhymes or has rhythm. And I love me some Taylor Swift, but you don't have to write a song to share your story.
No, and some people shouldn't.
Yeah.
But no, I think as long as there is a beginning, middle, and end to it, and especially the end part, that's the important thing. A lot of people have trouble with editing, and they add a lot of too much. You got to trim the fat to the story. Keep it to what really is necessary. Keep it tight. Keep it lean. And then wrap it up. Leave the audience wanting more,
Yeah, I wish somebody would teach Marvel that. But when you go to a Marvel movie and it just keeps going, you go, please, end this thing.
There was just an article that came out that Avengers, they cut 45 minutes of Thanos getting the Power Stone. So even what we see, somebody has cut down.
Wow. So let's talk reality here. TikTok is under attack, and I really do worry about people like Adam Ray because Montana said over the weekend that we're done. We're gonna cancel TikTok in this state. Mm-hmm. What about someone like Adam Ray? What is going to be the next reach for people?
I work with a lot of social media talent and a lot of TikTokers. And yeah, it is scary for them because it is a big part of their income.
Yes.
And, they would be losing a big chunk of their reach and their brand deals. But we always talk to the talent that we work with and, really encourage them to diversify and make sure that they have audiences on as many platforms as possible because Elon Musk could take over this platform and drive away all the advertisers. Mark Zuckerberg could really pivot towards the metaverse and then we're just stuck there. So you never know what's going to happen with any of the platforms, but I think the lifespan of any short form video creator, they have to have an exit plan. And a lot of them are really young too and don't even know what they want to do. They're 16 years old. But I think you can only make TikToks or YouTube videos for so long. And then you have to evolve into what's the next phase of that.
I totally get that. Even with podcasting, where we are today versus where I was in 2012 when I discovered this connection, it's like, oh my God, it's two completely different journeys.
Yeah. Yeah, it's easy to burn out on it too.
Oh my God.
Being a creator and and talking into a microphone for hours and hours and hours every day, like it can start to drive you a little crazy.
Do you see it differently though? Because you are a storyteller. I mean, I realize it is a microphone, but on the opposite side of this, there are two ears. I don't see a group of ears. I just see two ears.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it'd be weird if I had a group of ears.
I mean, because it's such a connection to people and with people, and it's like, it's like one of my essential jobs is being in the center of people, and what I do is I listen to their stories, and it's like, oh my God, I now have content.
Yeah. I'm a big theater guy. Like I love theater acting. I love being on stage. I love being in a room with real humans. It's the oldest art form we got. It's a shared experience, like you said. It's being in a room of people, and I think that for me that's the best storytelling. But this podcast, that hashtag Storytime, came out of the pandemic where I couldn't get into a room full of people. Mm-hmm. It was very dangerous to be in a room full of people. And that was kind of how this was all birthed, was still to be able to tell each other stories. And these are real anecdotes from people's lives. They're not like made up, fictional stories, but just a way of sharing stories with each other where we couldn't get into, go to a story slam like The Moth or something like that.
Yeah, it really was like the old days of my great grandparents where they sat around the radio, because I remember during the lockdown times, we turned off the TV, we would turn down the lights, and we would just listen to podcasts. It was a place of just letting go and letting your imagination have something to hold on to instead of worry.
Yeah, I'm a big I love listening to podcasts or audiobooks in the car. That's like my safe space. Mm-hmm. And I'm out in Los Angeles, and most people are driving around full of rage, and I'm like, people are telling me a story right now. Like I'm having a great time. I'm relaxed. I'm chilling, and it keeps me. It's a nice warm blanket on my brain as I sit in bumper to bumper 405 traffic.
Yeah, because I talked with Mark and Brian, and they both of them said that the thing that they had during their heyday in Los Angeles was that they had the attention of people for up to 3 hours. And he goes, modern day radio doesn't have that. We may get 5 minutes. And so he is really into podcasting because you do have the attention for a longer period of time.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of TikTok, where the attention span is there. People are really dedicated to sitting down and listening to a nice long chunk of content. The fear is always that we're just getting more and more, our all of our collective ADD is just growing and growing. But it is nice that people can sit and listen to, a 2 or 3 hour podcast. Or, I mean, my favorite is when there's a road trip and we get to just knock out, like 8 episodes of a true crime podcast.
Yeah. What about those true crime podcasts? Because I mean, I love them because there's drama.
We get a dopamine hit from our fear kicking in and then going, wait a second. Oh, that's not me. I'm fine. I'm in my, I'm in my car right now. Or I'm in bed, just listening to the horrific. My girlfriend loves true crime podcasts, and she listens to them right as she's falling asleep. And, I'll hear from one stray earbud, and the woman's body was found on the side of the road with 78 stab wounds. I'm like, how is she sleeping to this? This is horrific.
Yeah. And what's in her dreams? What is she seeing inside those dreams?
I don't know. She often has nightmares, and I think I know what the problem is.
Lonnie Martz, the links that people will go through to create a moment. I mean, everybody wants to hold on to a moment, but man, we will take chances to get there.
Yeah, Lonnie's a great guy. He's a really funny storyteller too. He told a great story on the podcast about there's this big social media convention in Orlando called Playlist Live, and he was like a new kind of TikToker, new creator, just kind of getting started. And he found a way to sneak into Playlist Live. He like laminated a badge and went to Kinko's and like did Photoshop and made this whole thing. And then had his friend come in a business suit and act like security to let him in. It was an elaborate ruse that he that he went to sneak into a social media convention.
Oh my God. Because all the way through that episode, I had memories of sneaking into a Rolling Stones concert. We had one ticket, but 4 of us got into the box.
How did you pull that off?
Well, all we did is we just acted without question. In other words, I would sit there. This is back in the day before they used the little boop boop, little scanner, and so I just kept holding up the ticket, and they just kept going. Okay, come on in. And it was so funny because it happened to be a stopping point for one of the mayors of Charlotte, and he stopped in there. We're all in there just partying down while the Rolling Stones were playing, and it was just fun to be in this moment that really should not have taken place.
It's the old just walk with confidence and don't slow down. It helps if you dress like a pilot too. I think that was on the 30 Rock.
Well, we had great looking radio station shirts on, and so maybe that was enough to convince him. I was like, oh, he's with the radio station. Let him through. They're doing a promotion. Yeah, that's it.
That was smart. That was like a big distraction where you're like, look at my shirt, not at my ticket. I did the same thing at Disneyland actually, where Disneyland has this racket now where as soon as you walk in the gates, they're like, you have to pay for the Genie Pass. And it's basically if you want to skip any of the 3-hour lines.
Right.
You sign up for this like line skipper thing. But you can, even when you pay the $60 or whatever, then you can only sign up for one ride at a time or something. So I had used mine, and then my friend signed up for the Star Wars ride, and he went up and he beeped his, and he was like, we'll just keep walking fast and the guy won't say anything. And there was kind of a confusion, and then he beeped mine. It didn't go, but I just kept walking. And then my friend behind me did the same thing. And then he was like, hold on, wait a second. There only one of you guys worked. And we were like, oh, well now we got to wait out here while he rides the ride. And we just kind of like didn't move, and the line got held up, and he was like, all right, okay, just go, just get out of here.
Yeah, because 99.9% of all security, they're just human beings. They're just regular people that have a suit on. That's it.
Yeah, they have anxiety too. And so when a line of angry, Genie Pass holders start grumbling, they're like, just go, forget it, who cares? Not worth it.
The episodes of the podcast, #Storytime, they're perfectly timed out. How what kind of there's a lot of strength in making sure that it's time to wrap it up. Is it something that you feel, or is it something you go, look, listeners only have about 30 minutes. That's it. We have to. That's our stopping point.
Yeah, well, I think that's all the time we have today, Arrow. So, no, I think we have a great editor. Shout out to Tony Maddox, who's our sound editor. So he cuts out all of my bad jokes, which definitely tightens things up. But no, I think that's one of my jobs as the host is to help drive the story and keep it on track, and to keep. I mean, I love a good tangent, but if the whole thing becomes a tangent, then we've lost the thread. Yeah. And just trying to, like I said earlier, find that beginning, middle, and end, and know when it's over.
Oh yeah, that little voice in the back of your head that's going, stop making it about you, stop making it about you, this isn't about you.
I mean, that's honestly, so on the podcast, I listen to people tell their stories, and I never get to really tell my stories, and I'm always like, I got a thing that I relate. I relate to that story. I'd like to. No, nobody cares.
How did you dig in to get the story with Lucky Yates and Burt Reynolds?
Oh my goodness. Lucky Yates, if you're not familiar with Lucky, he's an amazing voiceover talent, and he's been on shows like Archer, and he told this great story about, I can't remember, he was hosting an awards show, and he even himself was like, I don't know how I got this gig, like why I was up there doing this, but he was doing he had this monkey puppet that was hosting the show. And, when you have a puppet, it kind of gives you carte blanche to say really weird stuff. And so he was really going for it. And Burt Reynolds, I guess, won an award and got up there and didn't like what the monkey puppet was saying and grabbed Lucky Yates's hand and tried to break his hand.
Oh my God.
And all Lucky said, all he could think of in that moment was, Burt Reynolds is so weak, such a weak old man. But yeah, it's quite a feather in your cap to be like, I got in a fight with Burt Reynolds, I guess, and survived.
Do you see yourself as a journalist at all, or are you just downright, I am a storyteller?
I like to think of myself as a story hunter because that sounds cool.
Yeah.
But no, I don't really think of myself as a journalist. I feel like that puts too much pressure on me to deliver truth, and there's a lot of responsibility that comes with journalism, and I don't want any of that.
Yeah.
So I like to lean more into being a storyteller and a story hunter.
I feel the same way about going back to modern day radio where you just talk over the song intros. I go, no, I can't do something in 12 seconds. That's just not in my nature anymore.
Yeah, right?
I thought my family was the only one that played with Ouija boards during slumber parties. I mean, and then to hear this one, it's like, oh my God. And those boards still scare the hell out of me.
They're not allowed in my house. My mom at a young age was like, don't open gateways to other realms.
That's right.
I was like, yeah, Mom, that makes sense. I guess I'll heed that. But yeah, you have that in common with McCall Marabella, who told the story about, I think she was 16 and she had like a Ouija board party at her parents' house. And she invited a ghost in, a ghost child, which are the worst types of ghosts because they're the creepiest. And then, I guess it's normal in Ouija board practice where you're supposed to ask the ghost to leave after talking with them. She didn't do that, and she just ended the session. So the ghost stayed, and now her parents' house is haunted.
I totally believe that. Dude, I burn sage inside this studio all the time because I believe I brought something into this world I wasn't supposed to, and it will not go home.
What was it?
I believe because I study Native American spirituality. I went to a sacred ground that's about 4 miles from here where they lived underneath the rocks, and it's still very visible, and it's a monument now. And I believe that I went there with my writing, and I basically befriended this spirit. And so I said,
entity.
Yeah, be my guide, be my spiritual leader. And so sometimes I feel like I'm getting knocked upside the head where he's going, hey, that's not the way we do things.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I wish I had one of those.
They're available. All you got to do is open your heart, buddy. They're there. Because I always envision Russell Crowe with Beautiful Mind, with the people that were walking beside him. Only he could see them, yeah. And I think that we're all like that. But you've just got to learn to recognize it.
Right. Yeah. Or be schizophrenic. That helps too.
For listeners, how often do you update the podcast? Well, first of all, I love the idea that you have so many up there that you give people the variety. But the problem is I'm the one that has to start at the very beginning because I think it's a transition. Start at the beginning, which is on the bottom, and make your way to the top.
Started at the bottom, now we're here, to quote Drizzy Drake. It's really funny, actually, if you start at the beginning of the podcast because it's changed so much.
Yes.
We were really doing a kind of a more narrative and I was playing a little more of a character early on where I was this kind of loser who lived in my mom's basement and I would also kind of go on the journey of the stories. We used to have multiple stories in an episode. Now we tend to focus on one story. But so if 3 of the stories were all about like embarrassing moments, I would go to my middle school where I had all of my embarrassing moments and recount some of those things. But it was this kind of silly journey that I would take you on of the stories. But as you know, doing that every week for a podcast is hard.
Yes.
So we had to kind of streamline and it became more of a straight up interview style storytelling podcast. So it is very funny if you start at the beginning because the podcast evolves and changes to the format that it is now, which is something that we can produce weekly and upload. We're doing new episodes every Wednesday with a guest, and then every once in a while we sprinkle in an episode with my best friends / producers who I pay, Jason and Daniela, and we tend to find great stories on Reddit.
Yes.
And we pick a theme and then we do a Reddit read episode. So we actually just recorded one yesterday and it was all about music festivals and Coachella, because Coachella first weekend just happened. So we thought it'd be fun to hear some horror stories from music festivals.
Wow. Will, you got to come back to this show anytime in the future. I love having a conversation with you.
Hey, maybe we do it on PST time. I'm down. I'm here.
I do that with the rock stars, man. Most of my interviews with the rock stars are usually 7 p.m. at night, and I have to keep reminding myself that's mid-afternoon to them. Don't complain about this.
I haven't slept, right? So it's what time is it?
Well, you be brilliant today, okay, sir?
You too. Thank you so much, Era.